Start with a flea flicker to open up the night. And he connects with Galladay.
Sup, everybody? It's Timmy B, and welcome to our Week 11 recap with the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B, and also picking our Thanksgiving games. And speaking of Thanksgiving, Joe, happy Thanksgiving, man.
Happy Thanksgiving, Tim. Happy Thanksgiving to all the gentle listeners out there listening to our Flea Flicker podcast. All of our guests, thankful you guys all came on. Thankful that we have football season. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Absolutely, and Joe, want to be conscious of your time as well as the viewers' time with our holiday off, enjoying some football and spending time with friends and family. So let's just hop right into the games. We'll talk about them real quick. First game we talked about with Trent. Also, shout out Trent. Thank you for being our guest. The New Orleans Saints beat the Atlanta Falcons by a score 24-9, and Taysom Hill just did exactly what as we predicted. He wasn't that 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he scored a couple on the ground, threw one in the air, and he had himself a good game. And that Saints stingy defense, did the job against an electric Falcons offense. Joe, your thoughts from this game?
Yeah, it was really, I picked the Falcons in this game because
you did.
I thought that the Falcons would be able to score more points. I mean, 9 points, that's real bad for anyone. Yeah. But, considering it's the Falcons and, they're supposed to live on their offense and, this is a Saints defense that has been vulnerable. That was really, the biggest shock to me that they just could not get any more scoring drives than 3 field goals from Young Hoku. So, definitely concerning for the Falcons, but this is why they're a bad team. So props to the Saints. That defense played really well against one of the top offenses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said it, that Saints defense is a little stingy. I believe they're top 5 or top 10 against the run and, middle of the pack against the Pats. So a very underrated defense. And Joe, anything from Taysom Hill's offense?
I mean, it was exciting. Like, he's got a lot more of an arm strength than Drew Brees. Like, he was backpedaling a lot, but still able to, kind of get a lot of power and velocity on those throws. And then, he's such a threat in the ground game as well that, it does give a couple different options to Sean Payton. I mean, if the defense plays well and they can get the ground game going and just distribute the ball to Michael Thomas, who also had a pretty good game, they can be successful. So, props to Sean Payton for using Taysom Hill's strengths and, kind of fitting the scheme to his players' strengths rather than trying to fit players to his scheme and, kind of force a round peg in a square hole, so to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when your defense only gives up 9-10 points, you're probably going to win most games when you have Alvin Kamara, Sean Payton as your coach, Michael Thomas. So kudos to the Saints for winning. We'll see if they can win their matchup this week when we predict that game on Saturday. And now, Joe, we got some very sad news with game number 2. The football team beat the Bengals by a score of 20-9. But the big story, the big takeaway from this game is Joe Burrow's knee got torn up, torn ACL, MCL, and I believe some other structural damage to the knee. So he is out for the rest of the year, obviously. We wish him the best of recoveries, and hopefully he can get back on the field for week 1 next year. But that's pretty much it. Alex Smith, again, kind of like Taysom Hill, and like we saw Alex Smith last week, he did enough to put up 20 points, and the defense this time held their opponent to under 20 points, so they got the win. Joe, talk about the Joe Burrow injury and then any other things that you saw from this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a devastating injury for the Bengals. I mean, it's just the last thing that you want to see happen to a young coming superstar in the NFL. I mean, I think they've seen enough. I think we've seen enough to know Joe Burrow is the real deal. And when he's healthy, when he has protection and weapons, he can be a really good quarterback in this league. So my only concern is, him coming back from that ACL. It's kind of around the same time when Wentz tore his ACL in 2017. And then the following year when he came back, it was a couple games into the season and he wasn't fully healthy and, didn't have as much lower body strength and kind of used a little bit more upper body and just ended up causing a back issue as well because he was overcompensating. We would just hate to see something like this derail a promising career from Joe Burrow. So, Bengals, they got to get him protection. He's been getting hit so much this year. It was only a matter of time.
Yeah, and not saying that this is a positive, but if you do a positive spin zone on this, you know, you're probably not going to win a game for the rest of the season. So instead of having
Right.
picked 10, 11, 12, getting another win or two with Joe Burrow, maybe you're having pick 5 or 6 and you can get that number one offensive tackle. I believe Percy Sewell or Penny Sewell from
Yeah.
Oregon. I believe he's number one, or so they can definitely get him some protection in the draft. And I mean, on the football team side, Alex Smith did just enough. Antonio Gibson, they're finally giving him the football, finally scoring some touchdowns for our fantasy teams, Joe. Um,
So
so so good news from that, Joe. And now it's time for you, Cleveland Browns, 22-17. Carson Wentz had threw a touchdown pass, but to the Cleveland Browns. And then the Browns got a safety, and you know, you're the Eagles guy, Joe. We'll give you a couple minutes to talk about this game.
yeah, I mean, I won't spend too much time on it. Everybody's bad. The whole team is bad. There's not a bright spot that I can point to on this team in any aspect. I mean, coaching is bad. Like Miles Sanders had great first half. You know, I think it was like 80 yards or something in the first half.
And then he had like
Second
5
half, he had,
carries for 3 yards or something like that.
I think it was like 2 carries for 3 yards, something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, it was like, I get it, we're playing from behind, but it's a wet game. You know, it's raining. Your quarterback's struggling. You're having success in the run game. Just stick with it, Doug. Like, I don't get it. You know, and like I said, Wentz also had a bad game. I mean, he had a couple good plays there, but a couple bad plays. The pick six was rough. I mean, just a complete breakdown in protection. Richard Rodgers missing his block completely. And, you know, Denzel Ward coming in on a blitz to Wentz's, you know, the opposite side of where he was looking. So, you know, he tried to check it down as he was getting hit, and, you know, it was a bad pass and, you know, got picked off. So, you know, I like the thought process. You know, he didn't love the wheel route that was there, which looked open.
Mm-hmm.
But if you watch like the full play, like it's supposed to be like a deep wheel route, not like a back shoulder like kind of throw. And that would have been where he would have had to put it. And the safety was also kind of coming down there. So he wasn't open as he looked. But so, you know, he tried to check it down and then got lit up. So, you know, just extremely unfortunate, you know, all across the board. Jason Peters played terrible. O-line continues to be a problem. Defense continues to, you know, defense makes a play, force a fumble, offense scores a touchdown, and then defense immediately lets up a long drive. I think that Nick Chubb, like 54-yard run or whatever, was soon after that. So, I mean, just across the board, you know, bad everywhere. And I don't see it getting better anytime soon. I think that's the most discouraging part. You know, we are an old and expensive team. We are locked into these contracts through like 2023. You know, so if nothing changes, this is what we can expect from the Philadelphia Eagles essentially for the next 2 to 3 years. So I don't think that nothing's changing after this year. I think if we don't win the division, then someone's going to lose their job. I don't know if it's Roseman, if it's Doug, if it's Jim Shorts, if it's everyone. You know, I personally think it's time to start the rebuild process right now. I mean, this is across the board regression since 2017. You know, we talk about Carson Wentz regressing since that season. Why a lot of these excuses that we give to Carson Wentz, we also give to Doug Peterson. Nobody talks about it. You know, like his first year back from the injury in 2018, he was coming off of injury. So Wentz didn't look as good. Doug Peterson's offense didn't look as good. The next year, a bunch of injuries to the skill position. We don't have weapons for Wentz. Doug's offense is also not looking as great. This year, Wentz is not coming off of injury. We do have weapons, or we should have weapons on the outside. Offense is still bad. Like, these are the same excuses that we've been giving Carson Wentz for the last 3 years that we've also been letting kind of go to the wayside with Doug Peterson. I don't think that can be, you know, that should be understated. You know, this is a guy who's supposed to rally the troops, supposed to be this creative offensive mind, and it's just stale. And I just don't understand this dynamic, like the Jalen Hurts thing. Like, I don't get it. Like, so I think that the best move is to start from scratch as soon as possible rather than try to drag this out and just hope that it clicks next year. Because, I mean, what's the ceiling of this team? If everything clicks, everything comes together, we win the NFC East and we're one and done. Like, that's all I see for at least for right now and, you know, for the foreseeable future, you know, and I don't have any confidence in this team to nail their draft picks. So I think that you've got to just cut it all off right now. You know, fans are not interested. And I think that's the most telling thing. Like, people aren't even pissed anymore, just apathetic. Like, we're just like, you know, there's a drive where, you know, number one, on that 54-yard run for Nick Chubb, there was a holding call that was missed. It was a blatant holding call, and it was missed. And then on the next play, Baker Mayfield fumbled, and instead of the ruling being that he was down, they ruled that his forward progress had been stopped. So we couldn't even review it, and it was clearly a fumble. His forward progress had not been stopped. It was a huge, like, almost game-deciding play, but nobody cares. Like, I'm just like, dang it, like, shocker. You know, whatever. I'm just
right.
I'm so done with this football team. Like, I really think it's all got to go. I mean, if you get a new head coach, their number one goal has to be either somebody who can fix Carson Wentz, or you bring in Lincoln Riley and roll Jalen Hurts and eat Wentz's dead money. But there's so much. It would be historical if we traded him or cut him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just kind of alluded to it, Joe. If the Eagles do not win the NFC East, and this is a question I thought of the other day to ask you, probably safe to say you guys are having a top 10 pick if you do not win the NFC East, and probably somewhere between 5 and 10. So you, the Eagles fan, big football guy, big Eagles guy, what is the number one? I know there's a lot of positions to address, but let's say you have pick 7. What do you go after? The best offensive tackle, best linebacker, best, you know, safety? Like, what position are you going after?
There are so many holes on this roster. I mean, it's got to be best player available, you know, pretty much across the board. I mean, outside of quarterback, because, again, like, we're just locked into Carson Wentz, like, with this massive contract of guaranteed money. Like, we cannot trade him or cut him without having so much dead money. It's not happening. So we're not going to draft a quarterback. If one of the top offensive linemen are there, maybe that's where we go. If Jamar Chase is there, maybe that's where we go. You know, maybe defensive end. Brandon Graham's getting old. Derek Barnett, he might be about to leave because, you know, we had him on the 5th-year option, and, you know, he's, you know, not looking like he's worth an extension. You know, D-tackle maybe, because we've got big money tied up in three players, Fletcher Cox, Malik Jackson, Javon Hargrave. Someone's got to go. Someone's got to get out of there, and then someone's got to replace it. And also, linebacker is such a huge position of need, but it's also a position that if they're not Luke Kuechly, you're not drafting a linebacker in the top 10 typically. Especially at least with this current Eagles regime, they don't value the linebacker position highly. So there's not a chance that they would take a linebacker that high. You know, I don't know, Tim. There's so many holes. Like, and I think that there's going to be so many changes this offseason. Like, this is not going to be like, so many people are going to be gone after this season. You know, so many people are not going to get extensions. So many people are going to get cut. Maybe some restructuring. And then we can't really bring anyone on board in free agency, so it's got to be through the draft. So, you know, we've got so many holes that we're going to have to fill through cheap young talent. And unfortunately, we've done a terrible job finding cheap young talent the past few years. So it's not looking great.
Well, it's certainly going to be tough, Joe, and should be a fun offseason for the Eagles. And now Steelers, Jaguars. Steelers win 27-3. Defense shuts them down after going down 3-0. Offense just kind of went on cruise control, especially in the second half, just marching down the field here and there, scoring some touchdowns. I feel like the Steelers could have easily won 55-0, but they only win 27-3. Joe, any thoughts from this undefeated Steelers team beating the going 1-15 Jaguars?
You know, I'd love to see Chase Claypool, rookie wide receiver at the Eagles, pass on, continue to, you know, just ball out and, you know, light it up. He's not really getting much consideration at all for, like, offensive rookie of the year or anything like that, which really surprises me. Yeah, I know, but, like, he's having, like, I mean, 4 touchdowns in one game. Like, you know,
it's against the Eagles.
Yeah, I know. But still, like, you know, he's got a lot of stats. Like, this is historically one of the best rookie campaigns we've ever seen. I mean, can we please hire like the Steelers, like wide receiver scout or something, like just as our GM, like please, like these guys, they keep finding these wide receivers out of nowhere. Let's find who's that guy, and let's make him our general manager. Like that's what I would love for the Eagles to do.
Believe me, the Ravens fan in me would definitely like that, because we're like you with linebackers. We just don't value the wide receiver position. We can't develop wide receivers. The Steelers draft people in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds and make them all pro players. So definitely on board with having that guy join the Ravens as well. And now, Joe, this very interesting game, very interesting score that we're going to. The Detroit Lions put up 0 points against the Carolina Panthers. I mean, shout out to PJ Walker. He was 5-0 this year in the XFL as a starter, now 1-0 as a starter in the NFL, especially without Christian McCaffrey. He wasn't in the game. He obviously no Teddy Bridgewater, so limited weapons on that Panthers offense. But what did the Lions do, Joe? Like, good Lord.
Yeah, dude, for Matt Patricia, this has got to be one of your most embarrassing losses of your career. I mean, Jesus Louise, you're supposed to be a defensive coordinator coming from the Patriots, playing P.J. Walker, undrafted, no McCaffrey, no Teddy, and you don't score a point, and you allow, what was it, 17-0, 13-0?
20-0.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Jeez. So – I don't know. I don't know how you live with yourself as a Lions fan or as a Lions player after that. Did I pick the Lions?
We all picked the Lions.
Oh, okay. Jeez, yikes. Well, I feel a little better about that then. But yeah, I mean, Lions are just Matt Patricia. He's just not a good coach. Again, this is supposed to be your thing. You're supposed to be a defensive guy, and you allowed P.J. Walker to put up 20 points on you. Granted, your offense put up 0, but come on, you should still keep it competitive. And I think they forced 1 turnover, something like that. And
yeah,
PJ played really well. I mean, Mike Davis also had a good game. DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel also caught a touchdown. PJ Walker, he was spreading the ball around to everyone, and using his legs and making plays and taking care of the football. So definitely, really, really cool story for PJ Walker. Like you said, 5-0 in the XFL, 1-0 in the NFL. Right now, looking like a legit top backup quarterback in the NFL at the very least. I mean, who knows? Maybe next year, Jags or the Jets or maybe the Eagles. We're a QB factory. We bring him in.
You are a QB factory, and you said it. He can definitely solidify himself as a backup quarterback, especially if Teddy Bridgewater is out again this week, and he can pull off another victory for the Carolina Panthers. And now, Joe, it's time for me to talk about the Tennessee Titans coming into Baltimore again and beating the Ravens this time by a score of 30-24 in overtime. I think the big takeaway from this was, and I believe Lamar said it in his post-game press conference, is that the Titans just wanted this game more, and they showed it, especially in the second half. I mean, I believe the Ravens were up 21-10 or 21-13 at one point, and the Titans just kept coming back. We decided to not tackle on their last couple of drives, which could be a fatigue issue. It could have been an injury thing, but the Titans definitely wanted it more. And, I mean, obviously when you want it more and then the Ravens defense is on the field for most of the fourth quarter, I mean, of course – again, and like the Patriots game last week, this wasn't so much a game where it was, Lamar had a bad game. Lamar can't win the big games. He put up pretty decent stats, and, he was moving the ball. We did score some touchdowns. He did have some questionable decisions, but a lot of quarterbacks still do. And Titans just wanted it more. We had Derrick Henry halfway through the third quarter. He had 45 yards, and he ended up with 130. So he definitely turned on Tractor Cito. And then we'll talk about it when we predict our Thanksgiving games with the news today of the movement, thank God. But the Ravens need a lot of work right now. And I've been saying this last couple of weeks. We're probably going to go undefeated in December because we got the Cowboys, the Browns, the Jags, the Giants, and now Joe Burrowless Bengals. So this is still a 10-6 type of team to make the playoffs, but we definitely need to get some gears going. And but then, of course, congratulations to the Titans for beating us again. And, we just need a lot of work. Joe, thoughts from this game?
Wow, that was so much quicker and more efficient than mine. I was all over the place. Jeez. what were your thoughts on, the beginning of the game when the Titans players were on the Ravens logo at midfield and John Harbaugh was getting into it with them and Mike Vrabel and all that?
I mean, I think that's a whole nother factor too. I mean, sure, was it probably not the best idea for the Titans to do? Of course. But when you see that happen in the NFL or even in college or even in a sport like, college basketball or whatever, you see a lot of teammates and a lot of players go out. But the fact that it was just John Harbaugh, that says a lot about this Ravens team for me. And that was another point I wanted to touch on, Joe, and that might make this just as long as your Eagles rant. We just don't have that, confidence, or we don't have that spark. Like I was saying, the Titans just wanted it more. I mean, a year ago this time, we went into LA for the Rams on Monday Night Football, ran in, won 49-0, and we just took over. We were eating popcorn and shit from after we scored touchdowns and got turnovers from the fans. We were throwing water bottles and stuff, and we just had that confident swagger that we were going to just go in and run train and win 45-0 each week. We don't have that right now. And it is a big concern to me that we just don't have that confidence. I don't want to say it's a leadership thing. I think that we do have a couple of pieces there, like Calais Campbell. But it was really disappointing that I didn't see any Ravens go out there. And I know we are a pretty disciplined team, especially in the Harbaugh, but not even a person like Marcus Peters was out there trying to chirp to Malcolm Butler. And so that was a little concerning to me. I mean, it is what it is at this point. And then at the end of the game, apparently people think John Harbaugh waved off Mike Vrabel and didn't want to shake his hand. People, there's a pandemic happening right now, and the Titans were the first team to, have some controversy. So I don't think it was I'm not shaking your hand F you, man. What the hell? I think it was hey, man,
Did you see that video of you can hear the soundbite of Vrabel and Harbaugh talking with the refs there, and Harbaugh just – that's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. And,
it 100% is disrespectful. And
I agree.
Yeah.
It would piss me off. And then, have them do that. And then again, like you said, not have your players come and back you up too. Clearly the Titans, like you said, they wanted it more. They had more fight. They had more of an edge. That shit's disrespectful. That's cocky. I want to go out there and I want to punch someone in the mouth if they do that to me. So, that – the fact that Lamar said that as well after the game, I really do think speaks a lot of volumes about just, that mental edge of this football team. I mean, like you said, they don't have that confidence or that swagger. And, it's not even like the Titans lost to the Ravens and were pissed about it. They beat the Ravens last year. I don't understand the disrespect in the first place, where that's coming from, but if I'm the Ravens, that's extra motivation for me. So I don't know why they're, like you said, just didn't want to tackle and, kind of played soft there in the fourth quarter. I mean, you had everybody wrapping up A.J. Brown, and he just goes beast mode into the end zone. And then, like you said, Derrick Henry had been bottled up the whole game. They had done such a good job against him. And then, just collapsed. So definitely concerning, definitely disappointing. And like you said, I think it goes a little bit more beyond the talent of the team and more just of the mental fortitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this goes back to even 2 years ago and completely different teams when Joe Flacco was our quarterback and Mariota was for the Titans. We played at Tennessee, went in there, won 27-3, and we had that team record 11 or 12 sacks in the game. So we definitely have been kind of choppy and going in, dominating. They came in, dominated us in the playoff game coming in. So this is going on for a couple of years, and just different players are cycling through. And, I don't mind it. And hopefully we can both finish in second place in our division. And with the Colts winning Packers, we'll talk about that in a couple of games. It's a real possibility that we can see the Titans again next season. And I'm all for it, to be honest, Joe. But enough about the Titans. Ravens, again, credit to the Titans. They had a great game plan in the second half. We sold on Derrick Henry. They were saying that the whole game, and then they had some great play actions. Tannehill had some good play action rollouts. So moving on to a game that finally I picked right and you guys picked wrong, with the Houston Texans beating the New England Patriots 27-20. Patriots are done, Joe. I said it last week after they beat the Ravens. The Ravens are still making the playoffs. The Patriots are not. Patriots are dead. Goodbye. They are not making the playoffs, especially with some opponents that they have coming up. I believe they have the Cardinals this week, but Deshaun Watson is, quietly having a good year. And, obviously they went 0-4, but when you play the Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens, you're going to lose those first 3 or 4 games. But Joe, your thoughts from this Texans-Patriots matchup?
Yeah, a lot of fight from the Texans. Romeo Crennel, former Bill Belichick disciple.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was always an interesting matchup because Belichick normally does pretty well against his former assistants. So kind of interesting to see Romeo Crennel get the better of him this time. I think was it Brandon Cooks who had that big catch and run against them as well?
I believe so.
I think he had a big game.
Cooks got hurt early on. I believe no, it was Cobb. I think Cobb might have had one of Cooks or Cobb got hurt after scoring a touchdown.
Okay. Yeah. So Deshaun Watson, like he's making some more plays now. It's really interesting to see just the Texans being a little bit more loose without Bill O'Brien there. And for the Patriots, it's just more of the same. They're just not as talented. When Rex Burkhead tears his ACL and that's a significant injury for your team, then it speaks to the talent that is on that team. So nobody's really stepping up at receiver still. Jacoby Myers had that one good game. They need N'Keal Harry to really be that first round pick that he was. They just don't have much talent on offense, and then a lot of their top players on defense end up opting out. So, it's a tough situation for the Patriots, especially in their first year without Tom Brady. So, rough to be a New England fan right now. I don't think they understand how spoiled they were.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't care. You know what?
Right.
I'm so happy that this is happening, Joe. And, now we're all 5-3, so we all come out of the 1 o'clock slate at 5-3. A little spoiler alert, this is where most of the winning stops. This was our worst week ever on the Flea Flicker.
I felt like it was when I was watching the games. I just kept being like, oh man, like I picked that wrong, didn't I? Like,
let's get into the
results.
Let's get into the 4 o'clock games. Like we were just saying about the Steelers and Jaguars. The Chargers beat the Jets. Joe Flacco is looking good as the Jets starting quarterback and almost had a comeback. He had a bad pick 6, which if he didn't have, the Jets are right in this game. This game's going to overtime or somebody has to kick a field goal to win. So Chargers win 34-28. Justin Herbert, as we predicted, was throwing all over this Jets defense. Chargers defense stepped up when it needed to, but, Joe Flacco's not looking bad, and tank mode is still on for the Jets, it looks like. Joe, any thoughts from this game?
Chargers defense got to be a concern. I think we talked about it the week before. When Derwin James goes down, this defense becomes below average. Like, you can't have that. One player goes down and the rest of your defense is bad. They've still got Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa, Denzel Perryman. They spent a first-round pick on another linebacker, I believe, as well, right? Who is his name? I'm forgetting it. I lost it, but whatever.
They got Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma.
Yeah. So they brought in Chris Harris and they've got Casey Hayward. Like, they've got guys on that defense, but you're allowing 28 points to the Jets. Like, you're not going to be a good football team that way. You're not going to be a good football team expecting Justin Herbert, a rookie quarterback, to throw you to victory every game. You can beat bad teams like the Jets like that, but we're seeing all these heartbreaking losses for the Chargers, and that's a huge part of why. They're asking Justin Herbert to go win them the game every week. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
Like, why do that?
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting, Joe. A little spoiler stat for Sunday. They play the Bills this week, and currently the Chargers, I believe, are the number 4 ranked offense. And when the Bills defense has played a top 5 offense at the time, they were giving up, I think on average, 31.5 points. So could be an interesting matchup that we'll talk about on Saturday. But Chargers win, and Joe, now it's time for the game that we all lost again. Tua didn't do it against the Broncos for the Dolphins. Broncos win 20-13. We've been saying it this whole entire season. Vic Fangio is having a great defense out there in Denver, despite all of the injuries and all of the opt-outs and everything that they've gone through. Offense still needs a little bit of work, but Drew Lock did just enough against this Dolphins defense. They actually benched Tua because this was a game that they needed to win, and they were like, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been in this situation before. We're going to put him in, and he did get points. He did get a field goal, but unfortunately, we could not get some late Fitz magic in Mile High City. Joe, your thoughts both from Vic Fangio's defense and then this benching of Tua.
Yeah, like we said, I mean, Vic Fangio and that defense has been historically really good against rookie quarterbacks. So it was something to definitely be concerned about. I believe Tua had an early touchdown drive to Devontae Parker, and just kind of fizzled from there. So I don't love the move by Brian Flores to pull your quarterback. This just kind of makes this situation so much murkier. Like, if you're going to be all in on this year, then yeah, if Ryan Fitzpatrick gives you the best chance to win, you're all in on this year, go with Fitzpatrick. If you're thinking about the future, you got to stick with Tua, and you got to also stick with him through his ups and downs. You can't just pull him midway through the game. I mean, what if he got hot? I mean, Fitzpatrick got them down there. Like, they had a chance to tie it up, I believe, and he threw a pick in the end zone. I mean, what if Tua completes that? We don't know. I mean, he was having a bad game. But I just don't like the decision to go back and forth like that. If you're saying this is your team, mean it. Don't play with Fitzpatrick like this. He felt like it was his team, and now you're giving his team to Tua. Now you're taking it back from Tua and giving it to Fitzpatrick again. Like, stop playing this game and just roll with your guy. Have confidence in your starter so your team can know what to expect as well and know who to rally around.
Absolutely. Now, good news for Tua and the Dolphins is that they play the Jets on Sunday, so hopefully this can be a bounce-back game for Tua, especially to boost some stats as well. And, Joe, I told you the losses are coming again. Another game that we got entirely wrong. The Dallas Cowboys go into Minnesota and win. The Cowboys come out victorious. Andy Dalton did enough. The defense actually came up big for the Cowboys. I mean, but on the Viking side, 28 points still. Justin Jefferson. But yeah, shocker in Minnesota. The Cowboys win. Joe, your thoughts?
I don't have a lot to say. I mean, it's Kirk Cousins versus Andy Dalton. It's a stinker one way or the other. I mean, I'm shocked that the Cowboys defense is finally starting to kind of get into gear. I mean, it's a big win for them to get their third win. I mean, they were thrilled about it. So, I guess Mike McCarthy's out here smashing a watermelon or something.
It's a very important non-division win. It
is. So, props to the Cowboys. Go win the division. Go have it. I don't want it, So, it's for the Vikings. I mean, that's a game that you should easily win. I mean, it's a backup quarterback. You guys have been playing really well. You're going up against a really bad defense.
And you have Dalvin Cook.
Exactly. And Dalvin Cook's been on that tear. And, he really got bottled up this game. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence has these stretches of a couple weeks where he'll just be the best player in the NFL, and then stretches where he just disappears completely. And right now he's in one of his dominant stretches, unfortunately. So, don't like to see it, but, also just very indifferent. Oh man, the Cowboys won. Now they're close to beating the Eagles and making the playoffs instead of the Eagles, which is good news. So, whatever. I don't like to see the Cowboys win, but, right now it actually helps the Eagles. So, yeah.
It's a huge swing because assuming you're one and done, you're having pick 21 or 22. And if you aren't in the playoffs, like I was saying, that's probably somewhere between 7 to 10, depending how the rest of the season comes out. So that's a huge swing for draft picks. So the Cowboys get their third win. And Joe, Packers and the Colts, did you know that Aaron Rodgers is 66-3 when leading by 14 points, and 2 of those 3 losses have been to the Colts?
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
stat.
It's some stat. Colts win 34-31 in overtime. I was texting one of our first guests, Josh, because he thinks Phillip Rivers is overrated. And we were talking about Phillip Rivers and Kirk Cousins, one possession game in the fourth quarter. And we were talking about how both of them always seem to throw that big interception to end the game or just not get it. And I was like, because he had the Vikings he needed the Vikings to lose for his suicide pool. And I was like, well, Phillip Rivers came back, so Kirk Cousins won't. So that's good. You can't have both. But yeah, I mean, the Colts defense showed up, especially late, forcing a couple of big turnovers, especially in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal. I picked the Packers. You guys picked the Colts, so Trent's team did get the win. Joe, your thoughts on this Packers-Colts game?
Yeah, I don't know. I just had a good feeling about the Colts. I mean, you know, it was a battle from start to finish, just a really exciting game. You know, Aaron Rodgers there in the fourth quarter, you know, he willed them back and, you know, had the opportunity to win the game. You know, he tried to fit in Devontae Adams, but never really looked over at Tunyon, who was wide open, and that could have been the game. So, you know, it's definitely, you know, it's very exciting for the Colts, and, you know, definitely disappointing for the Packers because, you know, that's one of the top teams, you know, in the NFL. I mean, it's a good measuring stick. You know, one of the top defenses, and, you know, average to above average offense. You know, maybe, but you know, it's a game that, you know, the Packers, I mean, you know, they're going to lose these kind of games in December. I mean, you know, the teams that can run the ball and play good defense, you know, this is, you know, that's the recipe to winning in December. And right now the Packers can't play good defense. And I mean, you know, they can't stop the run. So, you know, it's definitely concerning when you're going up against an old Phillip Rivers and, like I said, an average Colts offense, and you allowed 34 points.
Yeah, absolutely. And good thing is they can likely bounce back this week. I believe they play the Bears on Sunday Night Football. So always a good matchup, but generally one that Aaron Rodgers tends to win. So that puts us, you and Trent are at 7-5. I'm at 6-6. So I told you it's a rough one. And going into Sunday Night Football, we all picked the Chiefs. And we all thought that the Chiefs would run away, especially coming after the bye. I believe Andy Reid is like 19-3 coming off a bye in his coaching career, somewhere around there. And boy, was it a close one. The Raiders took the lead late in the fourth quarter, under 2 minutes, giving Mahomes about a minute and a half to go down the field. And of course, Mahomes did exactly that. Travis Kelce was open in the end zone. Chiefs win 35-31. Joe, I mean, this was a great, exciting game to watch, but give me your thoughts.
Oh, well, you know, love to see Nelson Aguilar, you know, making more plays. You know, that's always fun to watch. But, yeah, I mean, you know, Raiders have had really good game plans against the Chiefs. They've been able to put up points and, you know, limit Mahomes to a degree. I mean, I don't think Tyreek Hill had a crazy good game. This is more of a Travis Kelce game. And then, you know, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell also getting involved. So, I mean, you know, like we've said, this Chiefs offense has so many weapons. I mean, you commit to stopping Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce goes off. You take away the pass. They've got two great running backs and a running quarterback. Like, you know, that this defense is their only concern, but they also came together last year in December and in the playoffs, and just, you know, were able to, you know, really, you know, pick it up and, you know, do what they had to do to get the job done. And once again, that's what they did. I mean, you know, it was a close game. It was a tough game, but they got the win. You know, Andy Reid is still great record off the bye. You know, it's tough for the Raiders because, you know, they played almost the perfect game for them, you know, and they still came up short. So, you know, props to them for getting close. John Gruden, he looks like he's, you know, well worth that 10-year, however many hundreds of $1 million contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, like you said it, with all the weapons of the Chiefs, I mean, the Raiders beat them the first time. Chiefs still scored at like 30 or 31 points. So they were still putting up points. They scored 35 tonight with Tyreek Hill not having the best of games either. So that puts you and Trent, one game away from the 9-5 curse, Joe. But however, on Monday Night Football, we all picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Joe, you and Trent went 8-6. I went 7-7, definitely the worst I've ever been, probably the worst in this show. But hey, if our floor is 500, we're going to be making the playoffs pretty much every single season, Joe. But the Rams come in and win 27-24. I don't want to say it was an ugly game, but there was a lot of messy plays on both sides of the ball from both teams. Turnovers here and there, missed field goals, missed kicks, missed opportunities. But the Rams were just able to squeak this one out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, let me preface this with saying for a couple of my fantasy leagues, I went into this night down a good bit. In one league, I had Mike Evans. In one league, I had Cooper Kupp. I woke up the next morning. I won by 1 point in both leagues.
Yay!
super hype. Cooper Kupp had a great game. He had, I want to say 11 catches, 140 yards. Mike Evans catches another touchdown, just continues to be a red zone threat. Tom Brady, he just keeps kind of getting in these slumps. He starts to get out of sync and doesn't really get back into sync, which is very uncharacteristic of Tom Brady. Because in the past, he rarely turns the ball over, and then when he does, then he comes right back down and scores on the next drive. So, it's a little bit concerning there that, when they do have these bad slumps, they don't seem to be able to get out of it. And they did not have an answer for this Rams offense or this Rams defense. Jared Goff, continues to just distribute the ball to all these weapons. Robert Woods had another really good game. Like I said, Cooper Kupp. I think Cam Akers also caught a touchdown. They've got a couple different weapons there in LA, and just a fast-paced, offensive scheme. So, they're able to score some points. But this is a game that you would have liked to see the Buccaneers defense show up a little bit more for, since, they're supposedly one of the top units in the NFL. It's just been like when the offense doesn't play well, the defense is not picking them up. They're not playing complementary football and giving them short fields, forcing turnovers. We haven't seen that enough. It just seems like offense starts playing poorly, and now the defense is going to start playing poorly. Like Brady throws a pick, the defense allows a touchdown. We're not seeing that complementary football that, you need to see out of a championship roster. So again, Rams just making some noise. This NFC is just like, I have no idea what to think of it. I have no idea who I could point to and say, this is definitively the best team in the NFC. Like, you can't do that for anyone. But I know it's not the Eagles. So,
which is going to be fun come playoff time, because it looks like we're going to have some really, really great matchups. Where in the AFC, we're probably just going to say, okay, so Steelers, Chiefs, AFC Championship, everybody? Okay, good. Yeah. Definitely that. And the Bucs defense do need to pick it up, because they have a date with one Mr. Patrick Mahomes this upcoming Sunday for a fun matchup, another Brady Mahomes. But Joe, that's going to wrap up week 11 of the NFL season. As I said, I went 7-7. You and our guest Trent went 8-6, and we got a couple of games to pick for week 12, because it is Thanksgiving. Generally 3 games, but the Ravens have had a bunch of positives. So the Ravens-Steelers, the Ravens ass kicking in Heinz Field this week has been moved from Thursday to Sunday. Football fan in me is obviously disappointed that we don't have some Thursday night football, but we still got 2 good games, and the Ravens fan in me is very happy because we have more time to prepare for the ass kicking in Heinz Field by the Ravens over the Steelers, not the Steelers over the Ravens. We're going to kick their ass on Sunday. But first game, Joe, we have the Detroit Lions hosting the Houston Texans, 2 disappointing teams this year. The Houston Texans are a 3-point road favorite. Over under I have right now at 51. I've also seen 51.5, so it's floating around there. I got to go with I can't pick the Lions after you score 0 points against the Panthers and the Texans beating the New England Patriots. And Deshaun Watson, like I said, quietly having a good season. So I'm going with the Texans on this one. Joe, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm also going to go with the Texans. If Kenny Golladay was playing in this game and was healthy, then I might be inclined to go with the Lions. But when he's not in, they can be such a pedestrian offense. I like TJ Hawkinson. I think Marvin Jones is a very good number 2 wide receiver. But if you take away Marvin Jones, then who else can really give you that big play threat? TJ Hawkinson can pick up some third downs and get some, tough yards, but he's not going to break a 50-yard catch and run, have these insane catches like Kenny Golladay has been having as a true number 1. So I'm going to go with the Texans as well. I think they win this game, but I think it's going to be close. Stafford plays on Thanksgiving a lot. He's used to this. So that also might be a little bit of a factor. He has his schedule, his routine every year. He knows, and I think it's a competitive advantage for teams like the Cowboys and the Lions to know every single year they're going to be at home playing on Thanksgiving. Like, they just know going into the year, so they can already be scheduling stuff accordingly and just making that plan already for next year. Like, that's a competitive disadvantage for other teams who find out when the schedule is released that they're playing in Dallas on Thanksgiving or in Detroit. So I think that's something that really needs to be looked at and changed. I know there was a submission to try to get it changed, and I think that they're going to look at it again at the next owners meeting, and I hope it does change.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can say tradition this, tradition that, but I feel like it does need to change, especially since they did add that third game at night, generally a nice rivalry game. And no offense, but I don't want to see the Texans and the Lions. Give me this Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. Give us a good matchup. And it's so hard to predict with week 12 or week 13 whenever Thanksgiving happens to fall. But we got to get some better matchups in this. But let's just move on to the next game, Joe, on Thanksgiving. Now, if I told you at the beginning of the season, going into week 1, that Thanksgiving between the football team and the Cowboys battle for first place of the NFC East, you're like, all right, I can kind of see that if the football team gets hot with Ron Rivera and obviously Dak, Zeke, and everything. And it's like, then I tell you that both of these teams are 3-7. You're kind of like, whoa, first place at 3-7, but here we are. The Cowboys are a 3-point favorite at home. Over under is 46. I'll let you pick first, Joe. Thoughts from this game and who's your pick?
Well, what I really want to pick is a tie.
Tie.
That's what I know you do.
You love ties.
Oh, my God. That would be so funny and just so NFC East 2020. Like you said, this is for first place. They're both 3-7. We're 3-7-1. Like, if you win, you have more wins. Like, there you go. So just win the game, and that's it. But that would be way too easy. A tie would be it would be so funny. And then if the Giants somehow manage to tie at some point as well, and every team has a tie, it would be so fitting. It'd be so beautiful. I would love for us all to have just down to like the exact same record with the tie and with like the same amount of divisional wins and everything. Like, so it's just like some stupid equation. Like, God, it'd be so funny. I'm gonna go with the football team.
I remember one time like reading the tiebreakers once, especially for wild card, and I think after you get to like 11 or 12, it's just like, all right, coin flip. Like, can you imagine if the division went down to a coin flip with all of these? Now, obviously, it's very tough because then it's like points for, points against, and like points per game in division or something. And
also,
like that.
we tied the Bengals, whereas in this scenario they'd be tying each other, a divisional team. So I don't know. I have no idea how that would affect things. Never been once in this position. So we'll see what happens. But I'm gonna go with Washington to win this game. Dallas's offensive line is banged up and still not doing that great. I think this D line is gonna take over, make life difficult for Andy Dalton. And the secondary has quietly been, a solid secondary. So if they can just limit the yards after the catch for those receivers, and keep Zeke in check, I think this offense can move the ball against that defense. I mean, they embarrassed them the last time they played, and I think they're going to embarrass them again.
Yeah, I'm with you. You said everything I was going to say. I'm picking the football team as well. I think even the Cowboys defense showed up against Kirk Cousins. I think that the Cowboys defense is still pretty bad. Alex Smith, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, they're going to have a lot of fun in this game, and that defensive line is going to feast on Thanksgiving, and there's going to be some turkey legs for Chase Young and the rest of that football team's D-line. But, Joe, that's going to wrap up this, or at least our Week 11 recap and our Thanksgiving predictions. I'm on the last page of my notepad in here, so once that gets refreshed, I'll count our all-time record. But that'll do it for today's episode of the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B. Joey D, any final thoughts heading into Thanksgiving?
I just hope everybody stays safe, to traveling and with Corona. Let's have a good football Thanksgiving, enjoy food, family, football. It's the best holiday in the world, in my opinion. I love Thanksgiving. So, hot take, Thanksgiving, best holiday.
All right, well, there's the hot take. And, Joe, you said it best. Everybody, please stay safe, but enjoy your Thanksgiving. Spend some good time with your friends and family. Have a couple of drinks if you're of age. Eat a bunch of food. And we will see you on Saturday for our picks. If you would like to be our guest, let us know. Put it in the comments that you want to be our guest, and we can make arrangements. But until then, everybody, have a great day. Peace.